Hi, this is Mrs. Perryizing, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to put text onto your video. Now, for our purposes with MSG Varsity, we make our text in 3 tracks. We have one track with the text on it, identifying who is in the video. We have another track with a bar that goes behind the text, and a third track with the video. So when you think of a bar, think of when you watch a news broadcast on TV, and when they identify somebody that's being interviewed, there's always a bar with their name on it at the bottom of the screen. So that's what we're going to do. So, as you can see, I have the video that we left off with in our last tutorial. So I need to have a total of 3 tracks. One for the text, one for the bar, and one for the video. So I'm going to right-click in this gray area above my video and say Add Track, and I'll do it again for the third track. Add Track. So now, as you can see over here on the left where I have my source indicators, I have V1 for video 1, V2 for video track 2, and V3 for video track 3. So the first thing I do when I'm getting ready to put text in is I place my playhead on the timeline where I want the text to go. So usually when I'm doing a name to identify somebody that's being interviewed, I put the playhead about 2 or 3 seconds into the clip, about right there. So this here is the bottom track, and that right there, and that's got the video on it. So on the next track here on V2, I want to put a bar. So I'm going to take my source indicator on the left and drag it up to V2 for video track 2, because that's where I'm going to place the bar. So the bar is going to go horizontally on track 2 and vertically even with my playhead. So right here where my cursor is floating around. So for our bars, we usually do a 2-tone color. We usually do it in the school colors, which are maroon and gray. So I need to come over to the bottom right hand side of the viewer right here where you see the text tool, and I'm going to go into render, and I'm going to go into custom gradient. And so you end up with a gradient of a white to gray to black. So first thing I'll do is on the top left hand side of this gradient, in this box here, I'm going to change the default text from 10 seconds to 4 seconds, because that's about how long we usually leave our titles on our videos. So change it to 4 seconds and say enter. Notice on this time stamp here, I read it from the right to the left. From the right you have frames, then you have seconds, then you have minutes, then you have hours. So that's the way you read a timestamp. So now I want to change these colors to maroon and gray. So still in my viewer, I'm going to go to the control panel, and where it says start and end, meaning your start and end colors, I'll make my start color a maroon color. I usually like to go into the crayon box, and I'll pick this color here that's close enough to maroon, and say OK. And for my end color, I'll choose like a dark gray, so maybe like this color here, and I say OK. So I've got my start and my end colors. So when I go back to the video tab now instead of the white to gray to black, I see the maroon and gray. So what I'm going to do is take this maroon and gray, and I'm going to drag it down to my timeline to where my playhead is on track 2, and let go. And if I put my cursor right in the middle of that clip now, and I look into my canvas, it looks like my whole canvas is filled up with maroon and gray. That's not a bar. So I have to make it into a bar. So on my timeline, I'm going to make sure I double click on that custom gradient clip that we just inserted for the bar. And I'm going to go back to my viewer, and this time I'm going to go to my motion tab in my viewer. And what I'll do is, on my motion tab, I'll go into the crop tool, and where it says top, I'm going to drag that down and watch what happens. As I drag my crop over, it's giving me bar. And I'll put it about even with her chest. You put it about a quarter of the way up the screen. And where it says bottom, I'm going to drag that up too. So about like that. Maybe a little bit bigger. Maybe bring the top down a little bit more. I think that's appropriate. And so one other thing I like is when I have the custom gradient, I like to make it a little bit transparent so you can see behind it a little bit, still not totally block out the subject of your interview. So back over here on the motion menu, I'm going to go to where it says opacity, and I'm going to bring that down a little bit, maybe about 82%. And as you look at it, you notice you can see through it a little bit. So that's how you get the bar on your screen. Now notice all of these different boxes on my screen. As far as lining up my bar, you might have noticed I made the bottom of my bar even with the bottom of this outer box. So to get all of these things that you see on your screen, first, if I go to image and wireframe, if I was to take that off, then I wouldn't get that big X on my screen. So I'd leave the image in wireframe on. Okay. And secondly, if I go to show title safe, watch what happens. If I take it off, those boxes go away. So I don't want that. I want to show title safe. Let me put it back on. And what that is if you look at the outside box, that's pretty much equivalent to what you'll be able to show on a high-def TV, 16:9 ratio. So if MSG Varsity puts our videos up on their channel, on channel 14, which is in high def, anything in this outer box will show. Anything that we show on their website or on channel 614, the on-demand channel, that's in 4:3 ratio. It's not high def. So anything inside the inner box is for the website or the 4:3 ratio. That's what those inner and outer boxes mean. So where's the viewer going to see this video? So I put the bar even with the outer box so that we can show it in high def. These little hash marks on the inner box and on the outer box, so here and here you see hash marks, that means title safe. So if you want to make sure that none of your title gets cut off in high def, you would make sure it goes inside that hash mark and that hash mark. And if you wanted to make sure your title didn't get cut off in standard def, you would go with the inner hash mark. So you want to put your title in between those. So that's what all those boxes mean, and that's why I took my bar and I aligned it with the outer box. And I like my bar just to go off the edge of the screen. So now the last step to this is I have to add text. So I'm going to put my cursor back, my playhead, back even with the start of the custom gradient bar that I put on video track 2. And now I'm going to move my source indicator up to video track 3 because my text is going to go on top of that. So now I'm going to go back to, let me put video on here, go back to my viewer, this time back to the text tool in the viewer, and I'm going to choose text. And we usually, for our purposes, we choose lower thirds. Nope, made a mistake there, hold on. Text. Lower thirds. And so it says sample text 1 and sample text 2. Generally, we put their name on the first line, and we put their title on the second line. And we generally, in our class, put the name 5 points bigger than the title. So first things first, this title is going to stay on for the same amount of time that we set the bar to stay on for, and that was 4 seconds. So let me change my time to 4 seconds. And as far as what we put in the sample text box, we're going to go into the control tab. And this is Eva Demian. She's our superintendent of schools. So for her name, I'm going to type it in. Now, always when you're interviewing somebody, ask them for the spelling of their name and have it recorded right on the video so you always get it right. So you ask them to say, state, and spell their name. So Eva Demian. And I generally like to have the person's name about 25 points. So I'm going to change the size to 25 right in this box here. And for her title, she's superintendent. So I'm going to write superintendent. And I had said that I usually like the title to be 5 points smaller than the name. So I'll make the title 20. So let's go to video to see how it looks. It's going to look something like this. And you know, what I think I'd like to do is I'd like to go into the motion tab and I'd like to say drop shadow so that when the text comes out on top of the bar, it will have a nice drop shadow to it. Back to the video tab, and now let me drag this down into my timeline on top of the custom gradient bar box, which is on track 2, so the text I'll drag onto track 3. Make sure everything is aligned. Oops, I've dragged it to the wrong track. Drag it down one. There we go. So now, let me see, is it nice and aligned? Looks good. So if I put my cursor in the middle of it, it's going to look something like this. My only issue is Eva Demian's name is not nicely aligned on top of the bar. So let me double click on her name in the track. And now I see my X's here, which means that I can drag it. And I'm going to put it inside the inside hash marks so that I can make sure that on a standard def TV it shows up and it doesn't get cut off. If I put it out here, even with these hash marks, it will show up on a high def TV, but maybe not on a standard def TV or on demand. So I'm going to stick it right here. Nope, a little bit right there. Alright, so that's how you put text in. So if I was to play this back, it's going to look something like this. Okay? Might want to align that a little bit more, but you can fiddle with it and play around with it to your liking. So that's how you do text. Again, to review, you want 3 tracks. The top track is the text. The second track is the custom gradient or the bar, and the third track is the video. That's all for now on how to do text, and I'll catch you on the next tutorial.